healthy margins from our Bitcoin operations in Paraguay, and we were given the opportunity for another 100 megawatts. So we're building that for next year, and that'll be another 10 exahash already planned. And right now, the team, the CEO and chief operating officer, are in Paraguay, but we're talking, and there we're looking on negotiating even a bigger footprint in Paraguay.
Hi guys, this is Coinjuice's first interview with none other than Frank Holmes, Chairman Executive of HIVE Digital Technologies. And I'm very happy to have spoken to him once before and to having a second conversation with him about how HIVE has gotten through the last 3 difficult months, let's say, of price action in Bitcoin.
Yes, thank you very much, and I wish you good fortune and prosperity in your new adventure in educating investors on this dynamic industry that's extremely volatile. And HIVE is the first crypto company to go public, mining company, and we have the longest standing executive team. And we function over 9 time zones, which I'm very proud of, 5 languages, data centers in 3 countries, and we still are the most efficient miners. And we started on the journey to HPC AI 3 years ago with our NVIDIA chips after they stopped mining Ethereum and Ethereum went to proof of stake. We pivoted to AI, and now we're happy. We have 10,000 customers all over the world. And with our new NVIDIA suite chips coming on, we see the vision based on our growth to go from 20 million to 140 million in revenue. So we're a dual engine story. So if you want to ask me questions about HPC and how hard it is, or you want to ask me about Bitcoin mining, it's the data center business is really what's consistent with it. You have to get the power, you have to get the land, and then you have to get the right chips and know how to run that type of data center.
Okay, so HIVE got these chips because of long-standing experience in the space with NVIDIA. Their business now is how much on the Bitcoin mining side versus the AI side at the moment?
You know, one of the big challenges we had after Putin invaded Ukraine is that hydroelectricity all over the world went up. And all of a sudden we had protectionism in Scandinavia, Canada. Everyone became really protected over this source of energy. So we sort of went sideways while we were building our AI business with our NVIDIA chips. And at one time in mining Ethereum, we had 130,000 special purpose AMD chips, and we were 6% of that network. And so we understand about the sensitivity between AI and GPU chips versus ASIC chips. And for simplicity, a ASIC chip is like a Jeep or Bronco, but a GPU chip with NVIDIA is like a Ferrari, a Bugatti. The engineering is so much more sophisticated. And I'll give you the best example. They deliver to us an ASIC chip, a brand new one. We unwrap it and plug it in within 6 hours, cash flowing. They deliver an NVIDIA chip, and 6 weeks later, it still may not be working. 6 weeks. And people say, why? Because you're building a brain, and so delicate, and the chords you have, all the connectivity and the harmonics and the balancing of the chips and the energy. So it's much more complex of what we have learned in that journey. But now we've really been able to benefit from Paraguay opening up. And I reached out 18 months ago and flew down to meet the president of the country, Santiago Pena. And he studied in America, worked for the IMF. He's 47-year-old rugby player. He's done a phenomenal job of building the brand of Paraguay.
Paraguay, yeah.
And Paraguay. So he's done a phenomenal job. So went down and met him and started with 100 megawatts. And then Bitfarms went through all these transitions and they repurposed to come into the US. So we bought their sites, which were half done, and we finished them. So we were able to go from less than 6 exahash to 25 exahash in 6 months, which is sort of unprecedented in that expansion. And we did it in time zones that are really significant. So we're very proud of what we were able to do. We are, because of the less expensive energy, we were able to take old buzz miners and immediately deploy them and save $28 million on those, getting the machine, getting the cash flow up. So we've gone from our results this past quarter, we made more EBITDA, more cash flow this past quarter than we did all of last year after the halving. So put that in that context, the whole year after the halving, people were worried how much you're going to make money, everyone's going to lose money. We end up making under $30 million of EBITDA, but we made more than that this past quarter alone. So going forward, we see very healthy margins from our Bitcoin operations in Paraguay, and we were given the opportunity for another 100 megawatts. So we're building that for next year. And that'll be another 10 exahash already planned. And right now, the team, the CEO and chief operating officer, are in Paraguay, but we're talking, and there we're looking on negotiating even a bigger footprint in Paraguay. So we're very significant for the government because we are Bitcoin miners that give them US dollars every month. When they were selling their electricity to other countries like Argentina, there was no pay to slow pay, but not with Bitcoin mining. They pay every month. So it really helps the government manage their fiscal policies because they control the energy and the power company. So we're thrilled about that. And then during this whole process, we hired a new president for our buzz miners for AI because we grew it. We said, now we really want to grow it big time. And we got a wonderful guy, Greg Tavares, as in Canada, has a great, wonderful, deep experience in the high performance computing data centers. We've proven our business model of doing 20 million in revenue, up 100% from a year ago. And that's only 2 employees. So no one has that revenue per employee in that data center business, but we do, and we understand how to cater for 10,000 customers. And we're going to expand that with new NVIDIA chips coming on. And Craig was able to go and bring in Bell Canada, the biggest telecom company, with 600 sales force, that they need to get into the AI business. So we're going to be that, and we're going to have sovereign data centers in Canada, and we'll be able to grow that to $1 billion in revenue.
So the mining business side is really heavily tied to the alliance with Paraguay's government. And that's going really well, which they're allowing HIVE to expand further with the
Yes,
team actually in Paraguay working on this at the moment. Whilst
yes.
on the other side, there is you said a thousand customers or 10,000 customers. That is for the AI data center energy.
Right.
Okay.
And to help your listeners, what we get when you have an ASIC chip and you plug it in, you have to break it down to what your cost of electricity is, but what's the revenue per hour per chip?
Exactly.
And right now in the ecosystem is 12 to 15, 14 cents per hour per high quality chip. In our old NVIDIA chips, we're getting $1 an hour. In the new NVIDIA chips, we're getting $2 an hour, not 14 cents. So our business model is very different than some of the other crypto mining companies have gone down this path to sell their power and infrastructure to a hyperscaler. We are the hyperscaler. We do have the customers, and now we're scaling with that globally.
So is it a problem if the Bitcoin price goes down to, let's say it hovers between 40 and 90 for a year and stays at a year? Does Hive's business model take a hit or not really because it's cheap still from $1 to 15 cents? of 14
Well, you
cents.
should, yes. Well, once, as long as you make sure manage your energy. We were the first to do hedging of the currencies and hedging of energy prices in Sweden, which has been a big benefit to Ride and other companies in Texas of managing the volatility. So we've sort of pioneered that, and think that we can get. My blue sky for Paraguay is about a gigawatt of electricity. That's what I think is the long-term potential. What's really important for your listeners is to deeply appreciate that Bitcoin miners were really entrepreneurs, scrappy entrepreneurs. They found stranded electricity, orphaned electricity. Electricity was stuck in Ethiopia, stuck in West Texas, where Caruso went and had flare gas and surplus solar and wind, and no one was using it. And today in Abilene, Texas, they're building the largest AI hyperscaling for open chat. It's the biggest consumer. They're spending $500 billion for. It's incredible to see 2,500 employees, big tax base now for Abilene. Economy's booming there, which is tumbleweeds and like desert, is now becoming an AI epicenter in America. It's the biggest spend right now in the world is in West Texas, who were originally Bitcoin miners. So when you look at that model, you can see that the same thing in Sweden. You can see that now in Paraguay. So first we go in and we build a substation, the infrastructure for what they call a tier one data center for Bitcoin mining. And then you have to go spend a lot more money to upgrade to tier three for AI for hyperscaling. And you need more air conditioning. You really have to spend much more money in backup air conditioning. So what costs you for a Bitcoin data center versus a high performance is 33 times more. 33. So 100 megawatts is going to cost you in Texas $100 million with the chips included. To do that in high performance computing, it's 3.3 billion.
Which is like two Hoover dams.
Yeah, the cost of the chips is so incredible, and all the infrastructure around to make those things work. So every time you go to open chat, it responds quickly to you. Well, you need data centers. So I think that we're well positioned for that build out, and now we're scoping out opportunities in America. But what's really, I think, important to recognize is that Bitcoin miners in say what we're doing in Paraguay, we're building substations, we're laying out the groundwork, and now they're going to have to lay what they call dark fiber. If you don't have dark fiber optics, you actually can't send any information from these high performance computing data centers. It gets stuck there. So you have to go and look at where governments and countries are spending a lot of money in dark fiber. We see that in Canada, in Toronto and Montreal. In New Brunswick, are 70 megawatts to be converted to high performance computing. Now the government's spending money to put in the high dark fiber optics. Sweden, it's well documented dark fiber optics. Paraguay's way behind. So Paraguay, they'll start spending that money to build out the dark fiber optics. We'll be able to get our money back for Bitcoin mining and then start in the process to make Paraguay the data center capital of South America. That they'll be able to convert. We'll be able to start the conversion of electricity for these data centers from tier one to tier three. But that's going to take several years, which is great because that means that we have a decade of incredible growth at HIVE in Paraguay and in Canada. For the next 3 years, we have huge growth. And I like to look at what's taking place on NVIDIA sales. So when you look at where does NVIDIA sell their beautiful H100, 200 Blackwell chips, it's predominantly America. Something like 48% of their chips are America. So then you look at Europe, and it's only 2%, and Canada, so 5%, 5%, and Canada's 2%. But now you look at the size of the population, the GDP, Europe is way behind.
What does that mean? What does that actually mean?
They have a big problem in respect that the governments don't have their act together. There's too many political parties. America has enough problems with with Democrats fighting and Republicans with 50 states. But when you deal with the arms race, and one of your questions sent to me earlier is, you know what? We are in an arms race. And it is a military arms race. And when Trump came to power and he warned Europe that you better start spending more money on NATO's percentage of your GDP or we're pulling out, all of a sudden you saw the military stocks double in Germany and the UK. And now they're building a whole military industrial complex in Europe. And Canada is now spending much more money on military. Why? Because China has tripled their navy. China has spent much more money on hydro dams and data centers, that they're in the arms race and they need the chips. So what you're seeing now is that governments used to stockpile oil for reserves. They're now stockpiling GPU chips and basically saying, no, you can't send these high performance chips because Xi Jinping is using for the military buildup, for drones and robotics, etc. So America is no doubt in this race. Europe is started, but they have much further to go. Canada now has an AI minister that is out there, but they don't have their act together as well as the US, that really has become concerned of this military buildup. China built 5 icebreakers and said they're close to the Arctic, and now they want to be able to have the path with military ships and for shipping goods to come down through the Arctic, along Greenland to Europe. And these are alarm bells going off because of what they've been doing and building these bases, and they control over 100 seaports around the world. They have lent, out of the 194 countries of the model of the UN, they have invested 140 countries with one belt, one road, but it has what they call covenants with it that say you have to be anti-Taiwan, you have to be anti-Israel, you have to, like, it's interesting to see, and very much anti the US dollar, no trading in US dollar. So they're trying to do everything to de-risk, and you're seeing gold prices all of a sudden go to all-time highs, and Bitcoin is part of that whole data center decentralized mechanism. And the data centers that Bitcoin miners have built are now becoming the eyes for high performance computing. They want that energy for the high performance computing, and the government is pushing more Department of Military spending for data center energy. You're seeing the government now in America invest in strategic metals. They're I don't know when they're going to start stockpiling lithium, but there's a real push that the government bought a piece of Intel. You're seeing the changes taking place because China is really threatening the stability. And when I look at the world's democracies, we're at an all-time low in the transparency and democracy as China has built out one belt, one road, and has built out this huge naval base and all these data centers and robotics. So we are in a real important race right now for energy, for data centers, and I remain very bullish that HIVE is positioned for that growth.
Yeah, I was going to. So as I'm listening, I'm thinking, okay, so all these different players in different parts of industry that are like merging with AI. These players are potential customers of Hive. Is that
Well,
correct?
no,
Or
in that way, because we don't really deal with directly with the public, except for shares of the company.
they could be sovereigns, they could be governments, they could be
No,
defense. I
we
mean,
would work with it, but I think what's really important is that the global race for compute power is not just because it's cool. Open Chat GPT woke the people up about AI. That's all it did. It said there's a new flavor of coffee and everyone tastes it and they love it. So what's been going on for a while is AI with all the quant funds, and AI for a lot of medical diagnostics, and AI for national security. now that people understand it more, and China is really pushing to control the world, we're in this sort of new arms race where there's a global race for compute power. And that means it encompasses technology such as HVAC, they call it, air conditioning. We need copper. Copper's going to become a strategic metal. You need to rewire everything. Fiber optics for dense fiber, it's going to become a new strategic. So what used to be oil and steel and sources of iron, the core axes of the 21st century great power competition, is now data centers and the construction of the data center and all the components around it to
Nuts and
support
bolts.
AI. So, and who were the first really big growers of data centers and all these scrappy places? Bitcoin miners.
So literally, we need to build new machinery, is what AI is now.
Yeah, yeah. AI is going to change care, but we know that the process for, I guess the big concern I would say, and the whole idea of being decentralized, which Bitcoin does so well, is about democracy and about transparency. And since Xi Jinping's model has influenced 140 countries, they love dealing with authoritarian governments. That's what they really want to deal with because they are their own authoritarian. So democracy is falling at an all-time low. So those countries that really understand that, they grasp this arms race. What we have to really get is senior policymakers in the EU and the UK, in Canada and the US to stop the bickering between the political parties and realize it's much bigger than this, where it's like dealing with Hitler as he was growing. That if you don't put checks and balance, they want to rule the world. So we need to have harmony. We need to have a stronger balance of power and a balance of democracies. So that's the big theme. And I think what's really cool is that Bitcoin miners are actually there. They're part of the whole infrastructure, the ecosystem, from believers of Bitcoin to building the infrastructure for mining of Bitcoin, and is now being looked upon by the US government as a strategic mechanism. So I expect down the road that there'll be thousands of small AI data centers across the country that no one's going to know are AI data centers in case a big one gets taken out. Maybe for cybersecurity, the Chinese or the Russians are able to penetrate and destabilize a big power station. And so how does the AI work everywhere else? You're going to have these sort of clustering of Starbucks everywhere that are going to come to the rescue. And when you start scratching your head, you got to look where all the Bitcoin miners are, because there's
Mm,
lots of small Bitcoin miners that have 5 megawatts. That data center, I think, over time is going to
will
become
be
more valuable.
to mining. When that huge Oracle OpenAI deal came out, how did it shape Hive's own vision for AI infrastructure? Did it affect Hive's goals?
No, we are a simple business model of being able to pivot on looking for the highest returns on invested capital. And that discipline is really interesting, is for us when we look and compare, not only being the first crypto mining company to go public and the most stable management team, we've always had operating income. When Celsius went bankrupt, and then 3 months later, a proof of work for Ethereum goes to proof of stake, and then Bankman Fried with FTX blows up, Bitcoin crashes, we still made money. We've had operating income doing every major halving and correction. So we think that we're in that position of being resilient, of seeing those changes, and that has also led to us to have the cost of building for an exahash. The data centers have been built in America and in Europe. It runs like $75 million approximately with the chips and all the infrastructure and the compliance and everything they've done. We've done it for 25 million. So we know about, because our discipline is a cash flow return on invested capital. That discipline allowed us to pivot from mining Ethereum with our NVIDIA chips, we saw we needed to get early and merely go to AI and start getting revenue from those chips. And at one time, we had a suite of over 30,000 NVIDIA chips that could mine altcoins and mine Ethereum. We got our money back and we started putting them going over to the AI spectrum. And then we sold many and then upgraded to H100s and 200s. So we have a smaller suite of chips that all of a sudden are doing 20 million in revenue with two people. And we believe, based on our business model, we're going to be able to scale that. Where are we going to be in 3 years, 5 years?
It's hard to
We don't
say.
know. We don't know.
It's
But we
hard to
do
say.
know that we will pivot when we have to on the cash flow return on invested capital is the overall driving factor in the data center business. And that's what we will do.
Is there like a moment in this industry that HIVE is in where it might plateau? Like today, data centers are super necessary, but once the data centers are more or less on the field over 10 years, maybe then it will plateau.
Well, in 10 years, I'll be 80 and hopefully I can still do 80 push-ups. And it's a great way to look at it because I can tell you at 70 that the crypto ecosystem and now the data center and arms race keeps my brain young. I feel like I'm a 40-year-old ready to run the New York Marathon, the energy because I have to keep up to things. And in my investment world, I launched a new product called War. It's an ETF listed in New York. Well, where did that come from, that idea? Data centers. I recognize the rebuilding of the military is driven by semiconductors and AI, and they need data centers. So I spent thousands of hours back testing on not just tanks and air and jets and naval ships. It's the AI applications to all those parts of what you're going to need for autonomous vehicles, autonomous weapons, etc. And so we created this product, and it's done really well this year. And so I'm trying to explain that you want to stay young by just being involved and saying, we call it the flywheel. What is next that's going to happen so that we may have to pivot with our capital. Or we're going to get taken out. You saw what Core Scientific, Core Weave tried to take them out, and there was a big debate, and Core Scientific wants to go their own way. I think when you get to that critical mass that Core Scientific was, that one of the hyperscalers will just take you out. I think that.
So what was this with Core Scientific?
Well, Core Scientific was a data center that basically was Bitcoin miners, and they were selling their space to other Bitcoin miners, and so they grew. And Core Weave needed to get more energy and data centers. So the fastest way is to go and buy a Bitcoin miner. Why is that? Because if you just have a brown field, it can take you 3 to 5 years to get all the permitting. It's a long cycle when you don't have the politics and you don't have all these government bureaucrats like you have in Europe and the EPA here in China. You don't have that. So China just, what takes us 3 years takes them 9 months.
Why is that though? Why?
Because they don't have all the bureaucracy. They don't
Why?
have the debate between Democrats and Republicans or the Green Party and the Socialist Credit Party and this party and that, but they don't have any of that.
Then
It's just one party says, we're building and we're gonna go. And
exactly. But is that a stronger strategy than what, let's say, is happening across America and South America?
yeah, and so the only time America and Europe has gone faster is when they're at war. And when they're at war, everything changes. When World War II started, immediately Ford Motor Company stopped making cars and they're making Jeeps and tanks like that. And the war got everyone focused. So I've been trying to explain to people that we are in an arms race. You must realize what's going on, and that's why there has to be faster permitting. So come back to the story is when you're a data center like Hive or Core Scientific is, and you want to go to tier 3, from tier 1 Bitcoin miner to tier 3 high performance computing, is 9 months, not 3 years. So the hyperscalers want to go in and buy or partner right away with the Bitcoin miners. So you can see TeraWolf, you can see Cypher, they've all gone through these partnerships with the high performance because it's faster, because they already have the electricity and they already have the land. When in our operations in New Brunswick on the border of Maine, we needed more land. So we finally had just announced we bought the land. We had to go buy the land. We had the electricity. In Toronto, we had the power, the land, and the building. So that if we started from scratch, it could be 3 to 5 years to get a data center in that part of Toronto.
Just
But
too long.
the high performance computing is 9 months.
9 months. So that's basically scaling.
That's the scaling. And so that's why you're seeing Bitcoin miners looking to go into that business and partner with the hyperscalers.
And is this all related to high density workloads?
It is. It is. And it has to do with one of the big parts is to look at the infrastructure, the high perform the HVAC, air conditioning manufacturing companies. They have a long lead time to get your machines. All the engineers that are building data centers, they're all so busy. If you need to get the big equipment for substations and transformers, the lead time could be 2 years, depending on the size. So what the fastest way is people are buying from South Korea who've refurbished old ones. It's fast for them to refurbish an older one and put new copper wire around and new plugs all over and get it shipped in. So we're seeing a real scramble for the components and parts.
So the demand for chips specifically is very high at the moment.
Mm.
Is the outcome of what you're saying.
And the big news in the conference today is Saudi Arabia and the US having a conference, and who's on the front panel, who's the front two speakers? Elon Musk and Jensen.
And what does that tell you?
Yeah, and they're celebrating with sparkling water, but they're there and they're talking about the future and how humanoids. Elon Musk says is going to be the big revolution of the future. But guess what? They need data centers. Your mobile phone needs a data center. And the more apps you want, the more powerful the data center. And what I found was interesting in Canada and in Europe too, was a lot of the telecom got rid of their data centers. Now they're scrambling. It's a shark frenzy to get back in, to get GPU chips, to get data centers.
Uh,
And Hive in Canada is one of the biggest in the whole country, and we're tiny. Well, I look at us, we're the biggest, and with our conversion, what we're doing, we will be unequivocally the biggest at 100 megawatts of electricity in the country. That's huge. Now converting that to from Bitcoin mining into high performance computing, we are the biggest in the country.
you want to be 100 now from 25, or
Yeah, for different properties where the electricity is more, a little more expensive now. For Bitcoin mining, you've got to get cheaper electricity
yeah,
and you have to get more energy efficient. But a lot of people are getting out of Bitcoin mining, the big miners. We're not, because we believe that Moore's law is really being applied, that each 4 years, the energy efficiency of the machines, the joules per second, is getting lower and lower. And that means the global Bitcoin network will get cheaper and cheaper consumption of electricity. Who's going to really be consuming more electricity is the high performance computing, because the air conditioning, if you have 100 megawatts, 50 megawatts, 60 megawatts, sorry, 40 to 50 megawatts is air conditioning. It's not 100% HVAC, because you have built a brain. it takes a long time, I said earlier, to build it and then keeping it cool. Otherwise, it's like putting a thermometer in your mouth and your temperature is 108 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to blow up. And so you have to keep our brains cool. When they're little babies and kids, you're always so worried about taking the temperature all the
Yeah.
time, their brain is getting too hot. Well, the same thing happens with HPC. You have to be taking the temperature all the time, like they're infants, that they don't get a cold. And that coolant system is really expensive and uses a lot of energy.
It's funny. It's like the way you're describing it. It's like you're keeping something alive, basically. Um, what do you make of current? So you mentioned that Hive is going to continue mining because it believes in Moore's law. Do you think that benefiting as well from the difficulty adjustment is also baked into that? And over time, still, it is going to be profitable to keep on mining?
Yeah, I think the real competition now for who's getting into Bitcoin mining is emerging countries' power companies. So Bitmain is selling to Brazilian power companies. They want to have when energy prices fall and everyone's asleep and they have surplus energy during that time period to mine Bitcoin. That's what we're seeing, that the power companies, and we're also seeing that BlackRock and Blackstone, and BlackRock is massive. They're buying energy companies. They're buying the power. And this all changed 2 years ago when AWS, which is Amazon's data center business, they went and purchased for about 900 million, well, $650 million, 900 megawatts of nuclear energy. Then everyone stopped talking negative about nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is now good because it's for AI. It's remarkable to see.
It,
And there's such a big run to get more nuclear power. So TeraWulf had nuclear power. TeraWulf now cuts a deal with HPC to use this nuclear energy. And before, when you first heard the TeraWulf story, oh yeah, but they're nuclear energy, that's not good. Now, oh, they're nuclear energy, that's great.
so another way, basically, to start mining effectively and
Yeah.
efficiently.
So we're seeing a transition, a transformation in the capital markets. Before everything had to be ESG, ESG, DEI, DEI. No, when you're in an arms race, you don't get caught up with all that social agenda. You have to go and build a defense system. Cybersecurity. I know in San Antonio is the #1 cybersecurity university in the country. That vision started 25 years ago, and they only had 100 students.
What do they
Now,
do?
10,000 students that are experts in cybersecurity. And now we have the National Defense NSA in San Antonio. Their second biggest office is San Antonio. Microsoft is building a $3 billion data center for them. Why? Because they get attacked all the time by China and Russia and Iran and North Korea. And so they have to be creating a mechanism to protect against these attacks. They were telling me in cybersecurity that they get 65,000 attacks a day, but 5 are really serious. Most of them are just people just coming in trying to basic hack and they go away. It's like a mosquito. But the other ones are being stung. You're getting hit, and so you're seeing that you have to have takes 25 years to train the brains, and I believe that Europe is behind in this training, and Canada is behind in this training. And if you're really good in Europe or you're really good in Canada, it's the fastest way to get into the U.S. We do know that China had 2 big cybersecurity assaults on America and in Europe. They call them typhoons. and one is called Salt Typhoon. And basically they were able to embed themselves in all the major power stations in America and some in Europe. So then the Chinese could push a button, a kill switch, and shut down all your electricity. Our streaming just stopped. Thank you, China. That was the worry. So they were able to stop that. Then the Chinese they found it in telecom that they had been able to get into AT&T and Deutschecom. They got into all the telecom, and they were basically there tracking all the data. They knew where President Biden was going. They had all this information they were able to find out they sent back to China. So you're seeing
This has been
that
going on. This has been going
there's
on.
something big happening. So this what makes these data centers extremely valuable and new sources of electricity. So I think they're going to be using these AI chips to make what they've done with Bitcoin mining, Antminer is joules per second dropping. I think by the next halving, we're going to be to 4 to 6 joules per second, the new machines, because you're going to get half the revenue. The only way to keep the network alive is to have either less people mining or to have more energy efficient chips. And
Um,
it's
is the Rubin CPX platform chip one of those? I did a quick search on NVIDIA, and that was the latest chip. I thought,
yeah,
how does it work? Like, do you have to constantly look out for what they're creating?
correct. You're always looking, and so that's when you see the U.S. government scrambling to treat computers and AI as strategic assets like energy and weapons,
Yeah.
steel. We're seeing this back and forth, and then we see what's happening with the U.S. with Saudi Arabia, and they announced a mega data center built in the Middle East. So the Middle East sees that oil, if you understand about oil, it's in the ground. And as America's shown with technology and fracking, all of a sudden there's a surplus of gas in America because of frackers. So our innovation has led to we know how to get a surplus. The NGOs funded by Putin were able to convince all the Greens in Europe that fracking was bad. So they stopped fracking, and therefore they all of a sudden, so they would rely on Russian energy. It's so easy to see now how Russia's used NGOs to go with protests and pay people to protest against fracking. It's a complete setup. But America was able to go ahead and prove they could do it. And so now we're going to see AI looking for how to make the chips better, how to make air conditioning better. So we'll continuously see new innovation going on, but we have to find other sources of energy, electron molecules, geothermal, like they have in Iceland. They're mining Bitcoin in El Salvador. Where can they get more geothermal energy at attractive prices?
You can tap into your data center AI and figure out that problem as a country. Is
Yeah.
what AI can do in this situation.
So the Middle East really wants you to buy as much oil as possible. They don't care if prices are down. They just want to sell the oil. It's all a net present value.
For
So the
them.
more cash they get, then the faster they can build other industries. And this happened in the state of Texas. If you go back to 1980, Texas relied predominantly on oil. Oil crashed in the early 80s. Texas, all the cities all went bankrupt basically, and they started to diversify other industries. And now Dell Computer exports billions of dollars of computers a year. We have the stock exchange of New York opening an office in Dallas. We have the biggest telecom companies are in Dallas. So the state is no longer just oil and gas. It's really well diversified as an economy that its GDP is bigger than Brazil. It's bigger than Russia. It's bigger than Canada, than just the state. And so I think that Middle East is trying to do that too. Get as much cash they can in to build data centers, to build universities that are going to be having coders for AI, and then do healthcare and do bio research, etc., and create the intellectual capital for the next century.
Wow, so it's like building a completely new thing and educating everyone along the way. So
Yes,
when Saudi Arabia makes deals with America, are data centers the core of the deal, or is it something else stacked up?
I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
When Saudi Arabia invests in America, will they be investing in these kinds of things like data centers?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. And it's really funny for me because Canadian pension funds are investing in San Antonio data centers, but they're not investing in their own country. And it's really to me, and then I find out that the United Emirates co-partnered in Canada to go invest in Canada in data centers.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that these countries are looking for the highest returns on capital, and they're going all over the place right now.
Because it's so
But
small.
I do see that you were going to continue to see the big growth in the Middle East. The Dubai created some new regulations, all from AI. It's the first country to create legal regulations using AI.
Everything is probably everything data entry should go through AI at this
Yeah,
point, which
and
means you need a lot of processing power to go through thousands of pages.
and now America's doing a big push because they know that nations that control manufacture and deployment of the applications of advanced GPUs. So you're seeing Samsung in America, they're in Texas. You're seeing Taiwan Semiconductor, somewhere on the border of Mexico coming into Texas. We're seeing that not just relying on Taiwan, is that the manufacturing is going to Arizona. The government's putting big money to help support that. That's a big change where the government is taking a piece of these public companies. And under Trump, he expects to make money. He's up big money in his Intel position. And so we're seeing disruption where China is 50% of the economy, and China is mandating where things have to go, and the U.S. has always been, well, that's over here for free enterprise. They realize that they have to also help, not just with loans, but they have to go make investments themselves in that direction. What happened in the previous administration, it was that they were so consumed with DEI and ESG rules that they forgot about what it takes to make a GPU chip. You know, that was the most important part. Why are you putting money into manufacturing chips when you're not really consumed with all the factors for the chip? They're more concerned about all these other social things rather than we better get a chip facility built and get people educated in STEM sciences to be able to run these data centers and retooling. And I think under the administration we have now in America, he rubs a lot of people in the wrong way in the world. But as Jensen says, he immediately is focused on the need for energy, the need for semiconductors, the need for data centers in America.
Um, this has been really interesting. I just want to ask one question to get your feedback. How do you see the economic climate moving forward? Do you see it positive, neutral, or slight concern, let's say? And what's the effect on everything we've been saying so far?
I think that this century, marked by this century, and I'm known for the war with gold. I wrote books on gold. I learned about Bitcoin because of all my knowledge about gold and the similarities and differences. So when I look at this century, and I write every week, it is that 2001, 2002, the G20 countries all started talking to each other and having separate meetings with the finance ministers and state departments around the world, and they all became consumed with what's called MMT, modern monetary theory, which is the application of using money printing to spur economic activity. And that's not going away. So when I look at the whole world, there's about $340 trillion of debt. And the GDP of the world to the global debt is more than 3 times. When I look at America, it's actually less, but America is the biggest GDP, so everyone criticizes America about its spending and what it's doing. But when we look at it as an overall economic engine, it's less. But they're still going to use modern monetary theory. That's not going away.
Mm.
Modern monetary theory says that fiat money will eventually go down to zero. Bad governments like Lebanon, where Hezbollah takes over, basically destroys a country's currency very quickly. You get a dictator in Zimbabwe with communist policies, and Mugabe destroys a currency right away.
Yeah.
Europe is so slow. It's a slow grind down on the purchasing power of fiat. Once you recognize that, then Bitcoin is very important asset. And that's one of the reasons why gold has gone to all-time highs. Silver coins, it's silver, physical silver is more expensive than the futures price. It's hard to buy them. I tell people buy them. I bought thousands of copper pennies the last time it was pure copper, and that penny's now worth 5 cents.
Mm.
And so now is just printed as last number of pennies. So if you have extra money, go get 1,000 of the new pennies. They don't and stash them, because they're going to go up like buying Bitcoin when it was $1.
They're useful as well.
Yeah, because it's the last time there's ever a penny in America.
Exactly.
And it has this tangible value, but it'll have a scarcity value because it's the last penny ever made. And I know the last copper penny, I could turn around and go to a smelter and make 5 times my money. It's really funny to see this idea of the scarcity. So MMT is not going away. Right now, the big spend is military, defense, it's data centers, it's GPU chips, it's all the parts we were talking about. So it's not just social welfare programs, money printing now. It's much going over national borders, national security, cybersecurity, autonomous weapons, robotics. There's much more government money being raised to go in this direction, and Europe's raised more money to go into spend 2% of their GDP on NATO, not 50 basis points, but 2%. Some are going to 4%. You need a crisis for a country to wake up, like Greece. Greece had all the Syrian refugees coming in, and everything was a disaster for them. And not only their economy was a disaster, all the refugees. Now they have the biggest GDP spend in the country of the countries in the EU.
I know.
They found they need more national security.
See, this is Syria.
Yeah.
Syria. I
So,
mean,
like, countries need a crisis to say, we made mistakes. Open borders are a mistake.
yeah,
We're bringing people in that don't embrace our culture. They want their culture. Well, their country's a disaster. Go back to your country. If you come here, you have to embrace your culture.
I agree with that.
And so we are now seeing a backlash. Japan brings in the first female prime minister, but better than that, she says the golden visa for the Chinese is over. And there's so many Chinese there for only $35,000. I think someone said the number was 35,000. You got a golden visa, and they had free healthcare and education. They said no more, because you want everyone to become Chinese food. You want everything to be. You have to embrace Japanese culture. Americans, if you want to go to Japan, you can't turn around and say our food and our religions and etc. Is the same. Shintoism is the same as China. It's not true. We have our culture. You're seeing that in Italy. The leader and prime minister of Italy, although we've got to protect the culture. Yes, we have immigrations coming in, but there's a protectionism. So more money is being raised for security, for different types of drones security, and drones for delivering food. But they need data centers. So I
Yes.
really come back to that. The key to this is all really
Buzz.
electricity, land, and data centers.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Frank Holmes. It was a really good update on everything Hive along with the industry and a lot to unpack.
Well, thank you. And we trade at the lowest multiple to revenue and
Yes,
cash flow. So stay tuned because I think we have a lot more on the upside.
nice. Thanks a lot.